beyond the initial deployment of the network, the management and observation of the network was the second most important problem that people were telling us about. So taking the advice of our venture capitalists who said it's much better to sell an aspirin than a vitamin, we went out to solve a problem of manageability, deployability, and then once the network's out there and you need to add to it, the scalability of that wireless LAN. Our architecture involved stripping functions out of the access point and centralizing them into a controller and layering a management layer on top of that so that you could configure your wireless LAN once and the system would take care of automatically pushing the configuration out to however many access points you needed to or wanted to deploy. And then the management system would automatically collect information from all of those access points and present it to you in a database format that you could run queries against to find out what was going on, and then a lot of graphical overlays to show you in map forms just how you could get that wireless LAN to perform better. Now, we chose that path back in 2001 and 2002 because the cost of a processor in the access point that would allow us to do everything we needed to do in a very distributed fashion was prohibitive. You could get a little teeny tiny slow microprocessor for the cost of what it would take to build an access point and keep it at or under the price point that it was being sold at that time. But there was a great convergence going on with the growth of Linux-based embedded processing and network processing silicon that allowed us to build a very high-powered controller that we could ship a lot of data back to, process very rapidly, and then shove it back out to the access points as needed. We could add value there at the controller that we couldn't put into the access point at that time. So we built a centralized hierarchical system. Now, like I said, we got started in 2001. We actually got our funding in April of 2002 and introduced our first product in February of 2003. We were fortunate enough to be purchased by Cisco in January of 2005, which has made my life much easier. And not necessarily Cisco's. In the meantime, I continued to work there and found that there's only so many dance steps that you can teach an elephant. So a couple of years back, I retired and was approached by some folks here at Aerohive to become an advisor to them, which may seem kind of odd because they haven't got anything to do with a hierarchical system. But from my point of view, the actual physical implementation and separation of functions in our system was a strictly economic decision. We had no ability to put greater processing power in the access points because they would become prohibitively expensive. We had an easy way to make a relatively low-cost central controller that we could add those functions to. Today, the cost of a MIPS-based or any other microprocessor that goes into an access point is relatively low, and you get many times the processing power that we had available. So all of the stuff that we had at our control layer at the controller is shoved back out into the access points in Aerohive's architecture. And it's really not the architecture of the system that is what I'm most proud of as our accomplishments at Airespace. What I'm most proud of is the fact that we were able to solve the problems and add features that made wireless LAN attractive to large enterprises. So that, in 2001 and 2002, you might walk into 1 in 20 or 1 in 50 enterprises and find a wireless LAN. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find 1 in 20 that you don't walk into and find a wireless LAN. And so I hope that most of you here today are involved in that effort to keep pushing that ball uphill and making sure that you can't go into any of 20 enterprises and not find a wireless LAN. That's been my goal since a long time ago as a science fiction reader, where you find that one of the premises in all those science fiction books is instantaneous, ubiquitous, wireless communication. And I think that Wi-Fi is certainly the first technology that I've seen that has a chance of making that capability available to us all.